Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 208 of the BJJ Break Podcast. My name is Byron. I'm here with my buddy Gary. Gary, we got a great show this week.
We have an awesome show, as always. This week we have on Espen Mathiesen this week. He's a great competitor out of Norway. He won Pans as a Brown. He's basically working his way up the circuit. He's a black belt from Nova Union. So going to be an awesome show this week.
Yeah. Won purple. He won Worlds at purple belt, and now that he's a black belt, really a great time to catch him early in his black belt career. He's kind of kicking off here and see where he's going. Really a great person to get to know through an interview and watch him climb the ladder in black belt and work his way up there. He's going to be one that you're going to watch for years.
Yeah, so definitely stay tuned for that part. And also check out Byron's audiobook, Your First Year in BJJ. Basically, it's 2.5 hours of content, walking you through your first year of jiu-jitsu. Your first year is the toughest year. A lot of people drop out, and our goal is to grow jiu-jitsu, and to do that, we want to get people past the first year. Like I said, $11.99 for 2.5 hours of content, and it basically runs you through everything from the benefits of BJJ, and not just being on an armbar, somebody choke somebody unconscious, but the health benefits, the social benefits, and all the way to what moves to work on and getting ready and for your first tournament or to compete or not to compete. So definitely check it out. We have a link to it on the show notes.
Yeah, Gary. We kind of have a new segment we're experimenting with, and it went well last week, and we'll try it out again. And if you enjoy it, let us know.
Yeah, and I know you really like experimenting, is what I heard. So perfect, I think.
Yes. Always jiu-jitsu is like, you could read about it, watch videos, and you're just kind of reading the books, but get on the mat and experiment with your jiu-jitsu and really figure it out. That's what you're talking about, Gary. But we're
yeah, that was what I was talking about there, guys.
We're experimenting with a new segment where we basically share like an off-the-mat story and then bring it back to the mat and how it relates and how we could learn something from that. And this week, I was just, like anything, you go through your daily life and you notice some things that you're like, oh, how does that relate to jiu-jitsu? And I've got a dog who was about 2 years old, and recently she lost one of her hind legs. Gary was heel hooking there, and she didn't tap quick enough, and one thing led to another. No, she actually ended up breaking her leg, and it could not be repaired, and so they ended up taking that leg. And so she's having to learn and adapt how to get around with 3 legs. And dogs do great. I've heard multiple vets tell me that dogs are 3-legged animals with 1 spare. And don't worry about it. You'll be more worried about than the actual dog will. They'll just, and that's true. She's very happy and she's doing great. But she's had a bit of a learning curve on some things. We have a pretty good size flight of stairs, like a full set. And she really kind of lacks some confidence, like to tackle the stairs, to go up them and down them. And it took her a little while to kind of figure this out. And so at first, when she wanted to go up the stairs, first off, she actually had to really want to go up the stairs. Like it had to be a big desire. Like, we're not coming back down for a while. Come up, or we had to call her. And the first time she did it, it was kind of funny. But she hopped, so all 3 legs at the same time were leaving the ground and landing on the step above, which actually is an energy intensive and really kind of a higher risk maneuver. And so she did that once or twice, and she got tired. Her legs not used to doing that kind of work. And so after a while, she would go up sideways, where she would put her bad side up, kind of hover that over first, and then hop sideways up the steps. A little better, but still not probably ideal. And now it took a couple days of that, and she's gained the confidence, and now she goes front legs and back leg, front legs and back leg. And it's like the most efficient way she could do the stairs, and she does them all the time without any worry now. But it was like a growing process, and she had to figure this out on her own. I can't communicate with the dog and coach her. Some things,
you could have walked up the steps and, crawled up the steps and tied one of your legs up to show her how to do
it. She's the fastest 3-legged race dog that I've ever seen, or 3-legged race participant. And it's an interesting training method, Gary. And we could talk about weird training methods if you want. But I was just thinking how in jiu-jitsu, some things we kind of just struggle with them on our own for a while. And it may be, this month in class we're doing guard passing or something like that. And you're at the point in your jiu-jitsu career where you're playing guard all the time. And those things you're learning may not really be a whole bunch of value for you today. But while you're struggling with your own guard, or we're trying to figure out a sweep or whatever, a lot of it is independent learning. Having great coaches makes a huge difference. But any given day, you really have to take some of your learning into into your own hands and try to learn things. Not to say that don't learn from your coach. I'm not trying to say that, but the path of your jiu-jitsu is largely controlled by you.
Yeah, definitely. With your point there too, I see where you're coming from. But I was thinking, as you were talking about the story, I guess because I get hurt a lot, it was making me think about, I always end up hurting my legs, pull a hamstring, tweak a knee, and trying to figure out how to go down the steps is always kind of weird. I might go down sideways or, one step at a time. It was reminding me of my time. But also, I think a good lesson too is, like your dog's got to live, without that extra limb, figuring it out. And, I think a lot of times we may be, hurt or injured, but we can still get on the mat. We just have to figure out a way, to train safe. As Byron knows, when I tore my rotator cuff and basically for a year, or little less than a year, I couldn't really move my arm that well. And I rolled for a whole year straight, basically just having that arm pinned against my body. I didn't have a straight jacket or a sling or anything. I just kept it pinned myself. And, I'd let my training partner know about it. It's like, hey, we can roll 100%, but, if you grab, my left arm, I'm probably going to tap real quick. And, I'm going to try not to use it. I'd appreciate it if you don't try to rip it off. But, so we have to adapt. Like Byron was talking about, hey, we got to learn, figure it out ourselves, teach ourselves there too. But, I also think, a big lesson of that is adapting, which is, I guess, learning there too. We're just going to have to, figure it out if it means that much to us and we want to keep doing it. And I do not want to quit jiu-jitsu. I want to keep going for as long as I'm on this earth.
Yeah. And another thing we could, same story here, work off of. Some of the expectations of the dog have changed. I mean, she'll never be as fast as she was. She's still very fast. She still likes to chase squirrels and rabbits and do this sort of thing. But she went from a very fast, she's a red heeler, very fast and strong dog to being a fairly fast dog. That's fine. Like, I don't expect her to just take off like she used to. Probably for the better. She's only has 3 good legs to go. So, Gary's talking about adapting your game. You also need to adapt expectations based on where you are in your life.
Definitely. That's a good one there too, Byron. Expectations. You were talking about how your dog's not going to be as fast. And, those are the expectations. I was thinking of my dog, and, my dog's elderly now, and I can't take my dog on the really long walks I used to, or the, long jogs. It's just a little too much for my dog now. So we slow our walks down. We take our time. And, it's just the expectation. I know my dog's not going to be able to, go as long. And that happens to me on the mat too. As I've got a little bit older, I think my passion for jiu-jitsu is as strong as it's ever been, if not more. But, when I'm rolling, I am not as fast as I used to be. I lose all the scrambles.
All the scrambles.
Yeah. Unless I'm going in a scramble with somebody in a wheelchair, then I got a chance. But, I'm just much slower. But my expectations are a little different. I know, like Byron and I were just talking about beforehand, this guy who's like my kryptonite. I have trouble rolling with this guy. He just beats me. And Byron's like, oh, you'll figure him out. And I was like, well, most people I figure out, but I haven't figured this guy out, but it's not going to change my game. I'm going to keep bringing it and keep trying it. I'm never going to just roll over and play dead, since we're talking about dogs. So.
Gary, you said a little phrase there I'd like you to repeat. Since I've gotten older, I can't go as long.
This show is brought to you by Viagra.
I don't know. I thought about, rolling on the mat. It's setting those expectations.
Yeah. Expectations on and off the mat, Byron. We have an awesome quote this week, and it's not from Larry Holmes, the Easton assassin, the boxer. This one's from Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. And I don't know who he was, but I've heard the name. But basically, he says, a young man knows the rules, but an old man knows the exceptions.
Wow. I think we could easily translate this over to just instead of age, go with experience level.
Yeah. Yep. As you get older, you just learn so much more. You've had so many more experiences. You know the exceptions. You know all the shortcuts. You know all the different ways. To get to point B, and all the little tricks and efficiencies that you need to know. Or I guess you don't need to know, but you need to be successful. You're going to learn with time.
Gary, I can't believe you don't know who Oliver Wendell Holmes was. He was an American jurist who served as the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States from 1902 to 1932. Come on, Gary, get it together, man. Know your history.
I was actually thinking, what was the guy's name on Green Acres? Like Oliver Wendell. Oh, Oliver Wendell Douglas. Okay.
Close.
That's who I was thinking of. And he was an attorney, too, or a judge.
There you go.
Yep.
Similar background. Different. Yep. One was a show.
Yep, one was a show and one was real life.
But the idea that the old person, experienced person, knows the exceptions to the rules. That's an interesting concept in jiu-jitsu. I feel that Gary and I have a decent amount of experience on the mat. And I feel like I know not like the rules of points and what's illegal, what's not illegal. I don't really care about that so much, but like the rules of having good posture, not crossing your arm across the other side when you're in someone's guard, kind of like an arm drag style of get your arm across there, and just keep your elbows in when someone is in mount. These type of rules are what I'm thinking about this, and I know there are exceptions to the rule. I know that I can see top level grapplers break some of these rules sometimes, but with my experience and Gary's experience, I've been rolling since a couple weeks after Gary started in 2002.
So basically, I've been rolling longer than you, right, Byron?
This is true. But
yeah,
even
just so everybody knows that.
Even with all our experience, or at least all of my experience, I don't really have Gary's experience, but I haven't got the experience enough to know the exceptions to the rules. I'm still playing by the rules, and they're serving me well. If it's a standard adage in jiu-jitsu, don't push your arms up on somebody. I don't do that. I still play by that core. But not that those rules can't be, not that rule in particular, but some rules or some things that your instructor tells you, don't do this. Some people can get away with changing that or bending it a little bit, and if Gary and I don't know about it, I speak for myself. If I haven't figured out which rules to bend or break in my years of experience, if you've got a year or two, probably you haven't either. So it's good to stick with those rules, and life's a little easier sometimes.
Yeah, and actually in real life, it's good to stick with the rules, or otherwise you may end up in jail and would need somebody like Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. to get you out.
Or have somebody like Gary come play basketball with the prison league as a charity.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Fun for Gary and the people that he played against.
Got that right.
An interesting quote. Just I think it's more of a caution. I think as I look at it more, is you might watch high level grapplers do things and that look a little bit weird, or like my coach says, don't do that, and he's getting away with it, or she's doing this and I've heard this is wrong. They're at a different level than me, at least, and I know if I pull that off or I attempt that, usually I'll pay the price for it in a negative way. Not that paying the price is ever that positive, but yeah. So sticking with the rules, it's always safe to play the young man's kind of role in this and follow the advice that your coach gives you and stick with them. But just know that sometimes you see somebody kind of bend or break those rules and they get away with it and it works out good for them. There you go. They're an exception. They practice that thing particularly well, and that's something that they found they can do and get away with or do and use to their advantage. But unless you've got a ton of skill and experience and a lot of practice in the area, you're best off sticking to the rules, sticking to the fundamentals.
Yep, I like what you really said there, Byron. Follow the advice of your coach. Your coach has been around. Your coach knows he's going to tell you what to do, what not to do, and like Byron said, you're going to see some people, get away with that at, higher levels. But, sometimes it may be fundamentally wrong and you're going to pay for it at your level. You don't have the skill or the technique or the strength of that, higher level person. So definitely listen to your coach. Your coach will put you in the right path.
And an easy example, I was getting ready to let this go, but I thought of one finally. For MMA, you see sometimes a competitor will lower their hands and just use head movement alone to not get hit in the head. And that looks like, they're playing with them. A lot of times they're actually drawing the person out into it's a trap. But that's somebody who is not age-wise, but experience-wise, the old person in the situation. They know what they're doing. They're very experienced unless they just get flat out knocked out. But the young person, the newer striker, keep the hands up to protect your head, to protect your face, protect that damage. The brain needs protection.
A good example of that, if you've seen some of the Rocky movies. Rocky was the old boxer, and he would just let you hit him. He would, he'd get mad and tell you to hit him, and you'd hit him once, and he'd tell you to hit him again, and the guy would hit Rocky again, and Rocky would say, hit me again, and he would hit Rocky again, and then Rocky would get mad and then knock him out. So, because Rocky was the old man, that's why it worked.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't, recommend letting somebody just tee off on you.
I was thinking more Anderson Silva style, like not trying to get hit, but trying to make them
and
swing.
Look what happened.
Big.
Look what happened.
Yeah, eventually, yeah. That's sometimes it catches up with you.
Yeah.
But interesting concept. Think about your own jiu-jitsu. Think where it could apply. Kind of wraps up the first part. Like I said, let us know if you enjoy the part where we kind of bring in a story. Not we just finish with a quote, but where we bring up a kind of a story off the mat lesson and bring it to the mat and see where we take it from there. Time now, Gary, for our interview.
Let's get to the mat with Espen Mathiesen.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
They were going to make a movie about me, but no actor or stuntman could move like me. And I don't know how to act. I'm always real. One time after training, I forgot to shower, and I got a phone call from the Center for Disease Control. 2 guys in a biosuit showed up and sprayed me down.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Break podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Espen Mathiesen to the BJJ Break podcast all the way from Norway. Espen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, man. Hi, guys.
Happy to have you here. You're definitely one of the top competitors in Europe, and it's been fun kind of watching you online and seeing you compete and do very well and develop as a martial artist. So I'm really excited to bring you to the audience. If somebody is unaware of you, Espen, can you just kind of introduce yourself a little bit and tell us who you are a little?
Yeah. My name is Espen Mathiesen. I'm 22 years old. I'm from the west coast of Norway, from a small town called Egersund. I've been training jiu-jitsu for almost 7 years now, and I got my black belt under Jose Carlos. So I'm a part of the Kimura Novyuniao team. Yeah.
Have you been competing most of the time you've been training?
Yeah, I started competing like 7 months into training when I was a white belt, and I've been competing frequently since that.
How has it changed for you since you got your black belt?
In all honesty, it hasn't changed too much. It's the same thing. You have to train. You have the level is pretty high at brown belt as well. Like the top brown belts are really good. So I can feel that when I fought the Copper Podium in February, I competed against brown belts and I competed against black belts that day, and like the difference was minor. I couldn't feel the difference between the levels. So I'm excited for I'm excited for the new level. It's the top. I'm going to go against the best guys. So this is a time where I'm like going pro, if you can say it like that.
You've been training for 7 years. It seems like you're really dedicated to the sport. What are some of your keys to getting really good at jiu-jitsu pretty quick?
In all honesty, I think it's the passion. You have to have true passion to get good in jiu-jitsu, because it's a complex sport. There's a lot of stuff you have to learn about your body and yourself, but also the techniques, and there's many layers to techniques. So if you don't have true passion, it's going to be hard. So having that had made it easier for me, because I've used a lot of time studying, watching YouTube, watching fights. I think a lot about it, and all those small stuff makes it easier for sure.
Espen, you're 22 years old. You're relatively young compared to a lot of black belts. What do you do off the mat? What are you doing when you're not doing jiu-jitsu?
Then I'm thinking about jiu-jitsu. That's the key, man.
It's that passion you're talking about. It's really something that occupies your mind a lot of time.
Yeah, I try to, of course, I do other activities as well and other stuff, but I try when I can, when I have like spare time or have like time that I don't do anything, I try to think about jiu-jitsu. Like I visualize, I think about what happened in training, what I'm going to do. So my mind is like constantly, when my mind is drifting, I try to take it back on jiu-jitsu. So jiu-jitsu is occupying my mind a lot.
Could you tell me a little bit about your style, or maybe some of the favorite techniques that you have?
My style, I'm quite famous for the berimbolo. It's of course huge part of my style. I'm using a lot in tournament with the success, but also I'm developing more. I want to be a complete fighter. I want to be able to do takedowns, passing guard, and I want to have a diverse guard as well. So I want to be able to do X guard and everything. And I feel especially now when I'm entering the black belt level, you can't just have one style or technique that you're good at. You have to be diverse. You have to have many weapons. So my style, it's getting more and more. How can I say? I have an undefined style.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite submission?
Favorite submission, whatever works. But I think what I have most success with is the collar choke from the back.
Yeah,
for sure. But I'm also a big fan of the armbar. I like to get the armbar from various positions, so those have to be my two favorites.
Yeah, I've seen a lot, and I've also seen you working footlocks as well.
Yeah, I like to do footlocks as well. Been practicing that, and also my triangles. And I like a submission called Tarko Plata. I haven't used it in a tournament yet, but it's a guy from Norway, actually a purple belt from Norway, called Tariq Hopstock. He developed that move. It's kind of when you go for the Kimura, you can switch into this position, and I'm a big fan of it. So I've been starting to using that a lot. So I try to also, not with my techniques and position, but also with my submissions, I try to have more diverse game, have more different kind of attacks.
Well, I'm interested in the new submission that you're working on. I can't wait to see it pulled off in competition.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can search for Tarko Plata highlight on YouTube, and you can see Tariq. He used it all the time with a lot of success.
So that's somebody who's on your team?
No, he's from the east coast of Norway,
okay.
From Oslo, from Frontline.
What's the jiu-jitsu situation like there in Norway?
The community is growing. It's like in all the medium, big towns you can find jiu-jitsu now. And in general, it's growing, but it's still pretty small compared to America and Brazil, of course.
Tell me a little bit about your team and the training environment that you're in.
So I started to train in Egersund. That's a very small town with 10,000 people. So when I started there was my coach, Damon Nassi. He was a blue belt from Denmark. He moved to the town, started the gym, and that's where I started to train. So there was mostly just white belts, and of course him. He was a blue belt. So we trained there for a while, and we got in contact with Jose Carlos 7 months in, and he helped the team. He visited us many times a year and guided us. So the whole team developed. So now we have a lot of high-level guys. But the last 1.5 year, I haven't trained too much in Egersund. Of course, I train when I'm home, but now I'm living in Haugesund. That's a town 3 hours away. So you have to drive 3 hours with car to get to Haugesund. And there I train with two of the best guys in the world, Tommy Langaker, who's now a black belt, and Vegard Randeberg, who's really tough brown belt. So we train together, and we have made a really good environment to develop and getting better.
Is it difficult to compete there where you are, or do you always have to travel?
When I were a white belt and blue belt, it was pretty easy. You can compete in local tournaments, but nowadays it's hard. Like when I compete, it's mostly at bigger tournaments. So I go to like Europeans, or I travel to America to go to Pan American or Worlds. But I can't compete in Norway. You can go to maybe tournaments in Sweden, like Scandinavian Open tournaments. But it's still, if you're going to have really tough competition and if you want to have a lot of fights, then you have to go to the bigger IBJF.
Now, it sounds like you're doing jiu-jitsu all the time. When you're not actually training, you're thinking about it. Tell me a little bit about your training schedule. How often are you actually on the mat training?
So my normal schedule is training in the morning, 1.5 hour. And then after the training, I like to do some pull-ups or push-ups or something, just to do some strength. And then I go home, I eat, and then I do some stretching. I'm a big fan of stretching, so I like to stretch for like an hour a day. And then at night I train one more, and then it's a 1.5 hour session.
That sounds like a pretty intense schedule that you have. Have you had any injuries so far in your career?
Yeah, I had a couple of knee injuries, shoulders. In 2015, I was injured from August to February with different shoulder injuries and knees. But now I'm 100%. I'm training smarter now, taking more care of my body. So I think that's just a part of the process. You have to get to know yourself, get to know your limitations and how much you can train, because a lot of the injuries that happens when you're pushing the limits too much or you don't respect your body.
Is that what your injuries? Your injuries, it sounds like, weren't a thing that just happened. You know, one Kimura caught you and it actually injured you. It sounds like it was more of a training too hard and too much, or not listening for a minor ache that ended up becoming a bigger deal. Is that what it was?
Yeah, like the shoulders. I was away from strength and conditioning for a while. Then I came back, did a lot of heavy strength training, and that kind of messed up my shoulders. And then I did some normal jiu-jitsu training, and I did a movement that I always do, and all of a sudden it popped. And then I came back from that, and then the other shoulder popped. So it was clear that it was something with my strength training that was wrong, since both of my shoulder popped without any like big damage. And also with my knees, it was the same thing. I think I was stretching too much, putting a lot of pressure on my knees. I wasn't too much aware of it. And that that ended up giving me injuries.
Well, it sounds like you're doing better at avoiding the injuries.
Yeah, for sure. As I said, it's a part of the process.
Yeah, you said something about learning about yourself and your limits. So now you said you do some, I think you said push-ups, pull-ups, those sort of exercises. Are those a lot safer for you to do?
Yeah, I do more body weight, and of course I lift weights sometimes, but then I do it if I have a pause or take time off. When I come back, I start slowly, and then I build myself up again. What I did wrong, I went too hard. I went straight back to where I was at when I stopped, and that's where when you get the injuries, your body get a shock and your body start to break down.
Yeah. So I'm always interested in somebody who is a very good competitor, but not necessarily like somebody who is in a location that might surprise you that they're as good as they are. Just because there's not a whole bunch of gyms around you and a whole bunch of world champions surrounding you, but doesn't mean that you can't do very well there. But I think you have to train a little differently. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. You have to innovate. You have to think differently because you don't have the same environment. So you have to compensate with something. So what we have done, we have always tried to train smart. For example, when I was a blue belt, I started planning every year. So I knew each week what I was going to train, what position I was going to do. And then, because I bought mats that I had in my house, and my best friend, he lived 10 meters over, so he come over every day. So we trained, and we can make like our own schedule, our own plan, and we followed that. So every year we had like a really good plan what to do, and we were able to connect each position because every week was connected with the other week. So that made the learning process so much faster because I was able to put jiu-jitsu in system. Because jiu-jitsu is so complex, there's a lot of, it can be hard to kind of understand all the pieces. But by doing that, by planning, by thinking and doing the little extra, we were able to learn pretty fast. And also, since we moved in Haugesund, we tried to make a training. We've been traveling a lot all over the world, so we've been picking up stuff from the best academies, and we kind of made our own training. So today we don't waste a lot of time to do a lot of warm up or anything. We start slowly by doing drills, but we do with resistance, and that's a big thing. I don't believe in drilling too much without resistance. I know that's a big thing in the community, drill to win, and everybody want to drill. But I'm not big believer in drilling. Sometimes, of course, but most of the times I think you need resistance. So we drill a lot with resistance, and we're wary with the how much, maybe 20%, maybe 50%, and that's how we train the most. And we only spar like 3 times a week. We don't spar 2 times a day like most gyms. We only spar 3 times a week, and then we drill a lot beside that. But as I said, active drilling with resistance.
So the active drilling might be you start in side control and I have to escape, or you try to finish it and we're not going 100%. Is that kind of what I'm visualizing as far as what you're talking about, active drilling?
Exactly. That could be the case. It can be anything. It could be a position. It could be just, I want to play guard and I want you to give me different reaction and I want to sweep. And then it could be just more isolated, maybe just De La Hiva, and then you want reaction just from the De La Hiva guard. So you can kind of play around with it. You don't have to be put it into a box, and that also makes the training way more fun because you're always active, even when you're not drilling or doing it. You still have to think how your reaction is getting countered, if that reaction is good. So both guys are constantly working, and it's way harder for the body to do this kind of training than drilling without resistance. That's why I'm a big believer of quality over quantity. So even though we only train like jiu-jitsu 3 hours a day, not like 6 hours, we have very good quality on the time we train.
You mentioned that you made a really good plan, I think it was for a year as a blue belt, and what you wanted to work on.
Yeah.
If somebody's listening, they're a blue belt, that's a great idea. I want to do that. Tell them how to do that a little bit. Give them some advice about how to make a plan like that.
Yeah. So what we did, we started, for example, with close guard. So I started with close guard, and then we start working the positions. Because in the beginning, I had to just get the understanding more of the positions. So it's more, we start doing position techniques, both attacks, sweeps, and everything from the bottom the first week. So that was the plan. Bottom, close guard the first week. Then the next week is from top. And then the week after, we did half guard. And then from half guard, what's the most normal reaction? That's standing up. And then it's reverse De La Hiva. where can you go from reverse del hiva? Yeah, you can switch into de la hiva. So you see, you start to connect it. So everything like the week before made sense for the next week. So when you did half guard 1 week, and then when you were done with half guard, top and bottom, you start doing reverse del hiva. It made a lot of sense because you're training, you get to the half guard, then the guys stand up, and boom, you're ready for the reverse del hiva. So you kind of start to connect your whole jiu-jitsu.
So it sounds like a lot of your blue belt phase was learning with one other person who was not like a black belt or even a coach, more of a friend that you would just get together and have a certain position ready to go, and you would kind of get in these positions and work them at your house even.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you have the plan, you know what you're going to work, so you can study for that week. So, for example, you know that next week going to be reverse del hiva. Then you go on the internet, you search for reverse del hiva, go on YouTube, you maybe know a fighter that's really good at that position, so you can look at him, and then you're going to have ideas how you're going to, what techniques you want to work from that position.
Yeah, that's a great way to kind of use what you have available and then get the most out of it as well. It sounds like you did really well at that time when a lot of people take it for granted that they have a coach that has a curriculum all planned out for them, and they just go in the class and they do stuff. But I think if you have to do the hard work and figure it out, I think that puts you in a different spot to where you're really interested in your own progress and you're really dedicated to making it work.
Yeah, for sure, because like where the blue belt, as I talked about, the Damo Nasi, he's a black belt now, but when he started, and also now, he didn't have the time to teach every day, every week. So we had 3 sessions of jiu-jitsu. That was it. But we wanted more, so we didn't have a curriculum. We didn't have like classes every day. Therefore, we needed to make our own training at home. And when you do that, you stop being dependent on having a coach that feeds you with all the ideas, feeding you with all the techniques, and you have to have an active mind yourself. You have to be the problem solver. You have to be able to solve the problems. And that's a huge difference, being just a guy that receives all the information compared to a guy that's able to solve the problems himself. That's 2 completely different kind of fighters. And I believe that the guy that is the problem solver and he's always able to solve it, he's going to win in the long run.
Yeah, those are a lot. Those are definitely different skills that you have. You mentioned that you stretch a lot. Can you maybe describe what you're doing when you're stretching? Yeah,
because I played soccer for 10 years, so I wasn't naturally flexible, and I saw the pattern that flexible guys had a easier time playing guard, because you can use your guard more for retention. You can go to different position by being flexible. So I saw the need for me starting to stretch, and also I have one of my training partners, Tommy Langaker. He's extremely flexible naturally with his hip. He has like an open hip, so he can take his feet into the lotus position pretty easily. And I saw how he played guard and how he used his flexibility. So I started to stretch maybe I think it was 2 years ago. I started to stretch every day, and I focused mostly on getting my hip flexible. So what I do is their own sessions. I don't do stretching after training. I have my own stretching sessions, and I hold each position for over a minute, and then I gradually go deeper and deeper into the position. So I go over the same routine many times.
And you do this completely separate from your actual jiu-jitsu workouts. You're not doing this right before or right after. It's a whole separate time, or are they kind of linked together?
Yeah, because if I stretch after training, your muscles are already warm and they are kind of destroyed, so it's easy to get injured. And I did that in the beginning, but I didn't feel good improvement. So now I'm kind of stretching when I'm cold, when my body is not too warm. So when I'm warm, I'm getting really flexible. So I want to be flexible even when I'm cold. I want to be flexible when I enter the mat, even without doing a lot of warm-up, if it makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense, and I could see that would work for you. Another thing that is big with people who are competing is their diet. Maybe run through some tips or some of your diet strategies that you have.
I don't have a particular plan, but I have I try to eat healthy, have a good breakfast, good dinner every day, and I don't take any supplements beside fish oil and magnesium. So that's the only supplements I take. I don't take protein or anything. Therefore, I have to get it through my food. So I'm very careful that I get like a lot of chicken, fish, eggs, and everything, so so my body don't get destroyed from all the training.
I'm curious. You mentioned that taking you back a little bit here. As a blue belt, you trained a lot at home with mats you had. Are you still doing that, or is most your jiu-jitsu training at the gym now?
No, because I moved to Haugesund.
Yeah.
And so now I don't have mats in my home anymore, and we have the gym we train at.
Okay. Do you see yourself ever going back to having a few mats at your house and having somebody close by, or maybe even a roommate that you would train with? Would that be helpful, you think, or is it just better to be at the gym training?
So the case with having the mat, that's not what, like, the key is having an environment where you're free to do what you want to.
Okay.
And now I have that. So here in Haugesund, we're just 3, 4, 5 guys. We're a really small crew, but we have the same kind of environment. We don't have any structure. We don't have any. We have structure, but we don't have a teacher that tells us what to do. So we're free. We're free to set up the training how we want. We're free to plan. So it's the same environment. The difference is now we're at the gym.
That's obviously working well for you, but sometimes you look at some of these gyms and they have 50 or 100 people on the mat training together. Do you see advantages to that versus what you're doing, or are you're pretty comfortable where you are?
So I know that's a big argument everybody uses. Oh, I have so many good training partners. I can train with 10 different black belts, and of course it makes a lot of sense. But then if you look at them differently, so every time if you have a lot of different training partners, they will never catch up to a game. Maybe they will, but it will be slower. So you can do the same berimbolo variation, the same omoplata setup, the same everything, and it will take a while before people start to really understand it. But now, when there's so few people, we know every move we do. So we have 2 choices: either to switch up the game, start doing different techniques, or perfectionate what we're already doing, make it even better. So I feel actually this environment, it's better. But then again, since you get a lot of the same reactions, it's easy to go in, like, you stop developing. So you have to also sometimes go and visit other gyms, do some travels. So that's what we do. We go before Worlds, we went to Arizona, train with the guys there. And afterwards we know, oh, we need to work more on that, or maybe we need to do more of that. But in general, I think the environment we have is, at least in my case, the best. Yeah,
I never thought of it. That's really interesting that with a few amount of training partners, if they're really good, they know your game very well. And so if you're to get your berimbolo to work, you've got to do it perfectly because they know that it's going to happen. They can see you setting it up, and they're going to stop it unless you do it perfectly, or maybe change a little bit of it to make it work. And that way, when you get somebody who's not used to dealing with you or that particular setup, it should be fairly easy compared to your own training partners.
Exactly. That's exactly that's the point, yeah.
I'm kind of thinking about the bigger gyms. I train at kind of a medium-sized gym, and maybe getting a little bit of that by training with a few of the same people every time might help me out.
Yeah, but also you have to consider it's not just that we're the small group, but it's the way we train and also the small group. So we are a small group, but we do the active drilling. Because if we only did sparring, people will always bring their A game, and then it's easy to don't develop a lot of the parts of your game. But since we do active drilling, I can decide, today I want to do De La Hiva, today I want to do Spider Guard, today I want to do Lasso, today I want to pass Lasso, today I want to pass 50-50 guard. So it's nice with having the small group, but it's also nice when you can do it, combining it with the active drilling. So you can, because if your partner only do the deep half guard, and that's the only thing he do, you're going to have a hard time handling the Lasso guard. So it's the combination.
Yeah, putting some limits and some boundaries on what you're working on today with those partners. It sounds like you've really figured out how to make working at a small gym really work for you and your teammates as well.
Exactly.
And I think part of that is being that good teammate where you might not be really interested in deep half, but if your teammate wants to work it, well, you're in that position where, okay, I need to work this too to really help my teammate develop their deep half guard or something like that. And that's just part of being a good teammate.
For sure, you need to have training partners with open mind, and you need to have training partners that are willing to develop a lot of different areas of their game. Because if the guys I train with only want to do the same position and they didn't really try to do other position, it would be hard. But the guys I train with, Tommy and Vegard and those guys, they can do any position and they can do it really well.
Do you train just in the gi, or are you doing no gi as well?
The last 3 years, I've mostly trained in gi. I haven't trained too much in no gi, to be honest. So I might do it in a while, but for now, I'm just going to focus on the gi.
Yeah. Just really focus on that and get the best you can with the gi.
Exactly. I want to be 100% ready for the gi season. It's the first year as a black belt, and I don't want to have too many things to focus on. I want to have gi as my main focus.
You mentioned that you travel some and that you like to kind of experience other gyms. Where all have you traveled? You said Arizona.
Yeah, I've traveled to Arizona several times, and then I've been one time in California for 3 months at the AUJ with the Mendes brothers. I went to Brazil when I was a blue belt, and then again when I was a brown belt, and I was in Brazil training now this summer after the Copa Podium. So I've been to Brazil a couple of times as well. So, but it's mostly Brazil and America.
Yeah. In Arizona, who are you training with there?
There's a lot of good guys there. You have Orlando Monteiro. You have now Marcio Andreas there. You have Joshua Rodriguez. So it's stacked with good guys, and they're led by a really good coach, Gustavo Dantes. So it's the perfect place to travel to.
Yeah, and I've had Gustavo on the podcast before, the BJJ mental coach. Has he been able to help you prepare for matches mentally?
Yeah, he helped me a lot. Yeah, I've been listening to his programs, and he always has his speeches when I'm there. He talks with me, so his advices have had a huge impact on my mental game.
So how have you dealt with that?
I've been trying to take what he says to my heart and trying to use it. That's the big thing. People can give you a lot of information, give you a lot of good knowledge, but if you don't apply it, it's not going to have any effect. So when he talks about visualizing, or he talks about the different stuff, so I try to actually use it and let it be a part of my habits. And I felt it.
Are you visualizing things like before training and even when you're off the mat thinking about jiu-jitsu, or is the visualization process just before a match?
I visualize all the time. Every morning. As I said, I try to use all the, like when I don't do anything, I try to bring my mind to jiu-jitsu, and that's when I visualize. It can be visualizing just a drill, or it can be visualizing myself in a tournament at Worlds. So I use it differently, but I use it all the time.
What does this look like? Do you have to sit there, eyes closed, and think about something, or are you just kind of running through your favorite techniques, or techniques that you're trying to pull off, or you're working on? If I guess what I'm trying to say is, if someone's new to visualizing jiu-jitsu, what are some tips on how to do that?
So in the beginning, can be just try to visualize. If you train the technique, so say for example you did a triangle or armbar variation from the training, try to visualize yourself doing that over and over, and then try to do it. Like, the key with visualizing is doing it so detailed that it becomes real. You can't just do it halfway. You have to do it 100%. So you have to make it real in your mind, and you have to kind of combine it with emotions as well, because you have to have your mind there, and you have to have your emotion as well. And if you combine those, then it becomes real for your body and mind, and it becomes effective.
And so you're doing this all the time. I think it's something also that you're able to practice. So if you're visualizing day to day, also visualizing doing well on the mat in a competition before the actual match, I think you'll have more success with that than if you just, the first time you're really visualizing something is right before a competition, you might just end up getting yourself a little too excited or nervous. But because you're training with this, it makes it a more effective process.
For sure, I don't think you should start playing around with right before a tournament. I think the key is to have it as a habit. And say, for example, if you want to go to a tournament, you want to go do a big tournament, it could be Pan Americans, then you should visualize yourself competing there. You should visualize yourself with the emotion that's going to arise when you are at the mat. And you have to visualize yourself being able to handle that. And also, you have to visualize different kind of scenarios when it's going good. And then if it goes bad, how are you going to handle that? How are you going to handle your emotions? And you have to really try to go detailed. You have to make it real. Try to hear like the background sound. You have to see the people cheering. You have to see the ref. You have to make it as real as you can.
So Espen, let's just say you're going to compete in 30 minutes. What are you doing in the next 30 minutes to get ready?
I try to empty my mind as much as I can, because that's not the time to go over the techniques, then you should be ready already. There's no need to start going too deep about it, in my opinion, though. But everybody is different. But for me, it's about emptying my mind, and I like to think about the people I care about, my girlfriend, my friends, my family, and I feel energized by thinking about them, and I feel I'm going out there competing with them in my heart, and that gives me more energy for sure.
I'm very impressed by you. You're only 22, and you got a very good start with your jiu-jitsu career. A lot of 22-year-old athletes are just trying to figure out the quickest, strongest way to do something, but you're really taking a holistic approach. You're looking at off the mat, your food, stretching, training in small environments, and the mental side of jiu-jitsu, which I think a lot of the younger athletes just kind of ignore, and they just want to do that, just win all the time. And you're really taking this at a very deep level. I'm just impressed by this and where you're taking your jiu-jitsu further down the road.
Yeah, that's cool to hear, man. But I think a big factor for me has been books, because reading kind of took me to this path. So I started to read, like, I started to listen to Jim Rohn a lot on YouTube in like 2014, and he always talked about you have to read and you have to develop yourself and stuff like that. So I started to get interest in books, and reading really started opening my mind, because it gives you new thinking patterns. You start to see things from different views, and I feel that helped me. Like, for example, in the way we train, I read the book is Make It Stick. It's a book about how you learn. So the way we train is based on that book, is based on science. So it's not, the way we train is not something we think it's good. It's actually based on raw science. So for sure, reading has been a big factor.
Yeah, and in the book Make It Stick, it's teaching you how to remember things and how to develop. I mean, I guess you take it. It's not a jiu-jitsu book, but it's how to learn type of a book. Is that correct?
It's a book that breaks down how a person learns. So we kind of used to, learning is about repetition. So when you go to school, it's like it's all about repetition. Read it over and over, and then you're gonna learn. And that's kind of the mindset you take with you everywhere. So when I learned math at school, I would just do repetition on the formulas and do it over and over, so I could do it. I could remember it in my head, and I thought that was good. But the key to learn math is not to just do a lot of repetition, because you can know all the different kind of formulas, but the problem is when you don't know when to apply it. So the key is to not just do repetition, but try to know when to use the different formulas, because sometimes you have a task, but you don't know which formula you're going to use, and that's a big problem. And the same thing in jiu-jitsu. If you just drill the same armbar, no resistance, then when there's a match, you don't know when to use that armbar. But if you have done active drilling, you have kind of started to see the patterns, when it's the right time to go for the armbar, when is the best time to go for the sweep. And I feel having that mindset, being able to see, it's all about the timing, knowing when to go for the different stuff. That's where in my opinion, the secret lays.
Yeah, the Make It Stick book is it's really neat how you're taking more elements and bringing them to your jiu-jitsu. And I think that's, I keep bringing it up, but it's really interesting that a lot of people in the really big gyms just kind of outsource all that to their coach. They don't even worry about, reading books that aren't jiu-jitsu related and bringing them in and learning how to learn better and learning how to train at a more effective level. You're just hoping your coach does that. And I think that anybody could benefit a lot by looking for wisdom from outside jiu-jitsu and seeing how you bring that in and making a book like Make It Stick. How do you learn? How does your brain work? How are you able to remember things and to make them into good quality techniques or anything? It doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu related. It could be at work or anything you want to get better at. A book like that could help anybody out.
Exactly, for sure. So that's a big, I would recommend everybody to start reading books. And as we talked about, do it in various areas. So it can be like how you learn, what to eat. It could be business side if you're thinking long term, starting an academy. So you can read about anything. And of course, read about your mindset, how you can develop your mind, and how you can have a stronger mind.
Yeah, and example of one of the ideas in Make It Stick is that stories are a lot stickier than just like general ideas. So you're way more likely to remember a detailed story that somebody told you than just somebody telling you a general fact. And I wish I had a better story than that, but it's just our brains are geared to remember stories. And the book is full of these little tips about how to remember things and how to get good at things. And that's one example that I guess it probably doesn't translate great over to jiu-jitsu, but it's a really well done. And I have read that one, and I think we have a couple more books that we can talk about that I may not be as familiar with, but the Make It Stick is a great book.
Yeah, for sure.
What else have you read that has affected your jiu-jitsu?
As I said, I've read a lot of books, but my favorite book or my favorite author is Dr. Joe Dispenza. He have written some really good books. One is called You Are the Placebo. The other one is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And the third one is Evolve Your Brain. And especially You Are the Placebo made a huge difference for my career, because that was the first book I read from him. And it's all about... So You Are the Placebo is talking about the power of the subconscious mind. Because if the subconscious mind believes something, you can it can be extremely strong. So it gives a lot of examples of people having like knee problems, and they do surgeries. And some guys, they do the surgery, and some guys, they don't do the surgery, but the guys believe they have done the surgery, and they have the same result with their knee. Their knee is still as good if they didn't do the surgery. And it's only because their subconscious mind believed they did the surgery. And you can kind of translate, if you can use the power of the subconscious mind, you can achieve anything. So you can translate that to jiu-jitsu as well. So if you start kind of getting your subconscious mind to believe in what you're going to do, you can achieve it. And to make that happen, you have to visualize. Because visualizations are, if you do it deeply, like your brain can't distinguish between a deep visualization and reality. So if you visualize a lot, your body will believe it had done what you have visualized. So what they always say, success makes more success. So if you're constantly visualizing yourself having success, your body and mind will believe that you have already done it, that it is a fact for you, and then it will produce more of it. So it's all about starting to get the more understanding of your subconscious mind and program it.
Well, this sounds like a fascinating book. I know the placebo effect is something that is still a topic of great fascination to the scientific community. You still need to, when you're doing this medicine and testing and getting results in, you still need to control for a placebo because it is powerful. If you're just as simple as something like you're testing for a simple headache medicine, you need to give 100 people the actual drug, and then you need to give some other people a placebo, which is basically a sugar pill or nothing. And a lot of the people that are taking the placebo will still have the same effects as the actual drug is delivering, and it's a ratio. It's never going to be 0% affected by the placebo. The placebo actually is telling them this is helping you, and you're going to get better now. And that thinking that causes results. And I don't know a whole lot about how or why that works, but this sounds like a great book to look into that. And if you could become that placebo to where you don't need to take that pill, and just think of yourself in a different way, or think of how the result's going to be, your mind can do a lot of powerful things.
For sure. They even done a study where people sitting in the couch and they're visualizing themselves doing a biceps curl, and they can see that they produce more muscle cells in their arms just by visualizing it. So you see the power is extremely big, and it's only because you believe it, and you like your subconscious mind believe you have done it. So it can also have what's the opposite of the placebo is the nocebo. So if the nocebo is a negative one, so if your subconscious mind believe that you are a failure or that you can't achieve something, it will believe that and make that reality. So you have to be really aware of what you feed yourself with, or what other tells you. Because if you believe, for example, that if a coach tells you can never do that, you shouldn't try, and if you believe that and your subconscious mind believe that, even if your conscious mind, because the conscious mind is only 10%, and your subconscious is 90%. So the 10% will never win over the 90%. You will always lose. So you have to be really careful what your brain what you feed it with.
Espen, do you have an example of how you've been able to use this placebo effect for jiu-jitsu, or maybe just for your own health?
In one area, it really helped me was just competing itself, because before I was more nervous. I didn't have the self-belief. I would get nervous and get stressed. But now, as I said, I've visualized a lot of like me doing good at tournament, having success. So when I go to tournament today, my body is more relaxed. I don't feel the stress. I feel that I belong there. And that every time I visualize a lot before a tournament, and when I'm able to go detailed into it, I do good at the tournament. I don't have too many nerves. I'm able to feel relaxed, and then it's easy to perform.
Do you visualize a particular competitor? So if you have somebody that's in your bracket and you know they're very good, do you visualize having a match with that person, or are you just visualizing like just a random, just you doing moves on somebody who doesn't really have a face?
It varies, but a lot of the times, if I know I'm going to go up to a big tournament or competition, that I know the guys I'm going to meet, I'm going to visualize myself winning over them. So when I go to, for example, Europeans or Worlds, I know most of the guys I'm going to meet in the semi or final. So then I visualize myself going up against them, and I already studied their style, so I visualize their reaction, like how they normally move, so I can have an idea how my body gonna respond to that.
Wow. And then, so another thing about your you talked about is you visualize yourself doing well, and then if you need to recover something or something's not going so well, I think that helps you not panic because you've already visualized your way out of a bad situation.
Exactly. You can't just visualize everything perfect, because if you just visualize perfection, you're going to be like upset when something happen, or you feel like resistance, because maybe you're just visualizing yourself getting the submission right away, and then all of a sudden the match go into a war, and like then your mind, and it becomes like confusion in your mind because you thought you was going to do it easily. So you have to be prepared for a fast match. You have to be prepared for a war. You have to be prepared in being in an uncomfortable position. You have to prepare your mind for everything. But in the end, it's all about controlling your emotions, being able to stay cool under the pressure.
I would imagine it's not the best idea to think about the negative a lot. Is there, like, do you think you spend 80% of the time thinking about winning and 20% thinking about trying to recover your match, or maybe in a war, or is it 50-50, or is there kind of a ratio you could put a number on for us?
I think I would. It's like 20 to 10%. You don't want to visualize too much negativity, because then you're kind of programming yourself for bad outcomes. So it should be like mostly, sometimes 95% positive and then 5% negative. You know, you have to, most of the time you visualize, you have to be in your favor.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it also makes a lot of sense that you don't want the first time that your opponent they have mount on you. You're totally shocked that this is happening, and you're just freaking out. You need to have been there before, at least mentally, with this opponent, and stay calm and work on getting out and finding a way to win.
Exactly.
I would say you've had a very aggressive start in jiu-jitsu. You started competing at a pretty quick rate, and you really haven't looked back, and you've just really taken well to it. But if you're going to give somebody some advice for their first tournament, or maybe a blue belt level tournament, what advice do you have for them to do well at this tournament?
One of my best advice is to control your breathing, because if you don't control your breathing, it's easy for the stress hormones to arise. Because if you breathe like not deeply, that's when you're scared, and that's when you feel fear. But if you breathe controlled, you're not going to gas, you're not going to feel the same stress, and you're going to be able to compete like you train. Because a lot of guys, they train really well, they do good in training, but they lack the ability to be able to do the same in competition. And I think a lot of that is because of the lack of breathing. They stop breathing, and therefore they gas and they get fatigue, and they're not able to perform.
So the breathing during the match is what you're talking about?
During the match, so breathing deeply, controlled, having focus on the breathing. So maybe you do a sweep and you go on top. A lot of guys, they just almost stop breathing, and they just want to pass the guard, and they go relentless. And all of a sudden they're out of breath. But if you always focus on deep breathing, control all the time, that it's going to be way easier to compete and have and be relaxed.
Yeah, that's great advice. It controlling your breathing helps you not get tired. It helps you mentally. It helps put you back. I think a lot of times in those early tournaments, people can't even hear their coach. Their coach could be very close yelling at them, and they don't even hear anything. They're just too worked up. Learn how to control your breathing, and you'll suddenly have a better time on the mat. You'll be able to understand what's going on. You'll be able to engage your brain. You won't get fatigued really fast.
Exactly. Like, imagine you can't hear your coach. How are you going to be able to be creative? How are you going to be able to solve a problem at the spot? You're just going to be instinctive. And a lot of guys, they don't have the best instinctive reactions, because they're not used to training under such a stress. They're used to being relaxed. So therefore, they make the wrong moves, and all of a sudden they're in a bad spot.
Yep. And if you can't control your breathing while you're training, you're not going to be able to control your breathing while you're competing.
Yeah, for sure not.
So you need to do that at all times. And it's really, I'm also interested that you're not rolling a ton. You're training a lot. You're kind of sparring quite a bit, but it's very particular about what you're doing. You're not just getting in there and rolling for hours and hours. You're very careful with what you're working on, and it's very deliberate, your practice.
Yeah, I think that's, as I said, it's a part of the process. You have to know your body. You have to know your limitations. I see a lot of gyms, they spar twice a day. They spar really hard. But in my opinion, that's when a lot of the injuries come. That's when overtraining come. So I rather train a bit easier with the active drilling, but I feel I get more out of it. But then when we spar 100%. Then we go really hard. So I rather spar with a lot of quality than have quantity. So overall, it's always the quality over quantity.
Espen, you have a lot of goals, and you're competing, and you're traveling a lot. Do you have any sponsors that are helping you?
I have, my main sponsor is Mokka Hardware. They are supplying me with kimonos, and they sponsors me.
And do you have a particular kimono from them that you really like a lot? Or if we're going to go to the website, where should we look at?
Yeah, I like all their kimonos. I'm a big fan of their work. They are really comfortable. It's hard for them to, like, some kimonos, they break very easily. They get ripped off, but they're strong kimonos. They look good. So you go to the website, mokkahardware.com, and you can find a lot of cool kimonos.
Cool. I'll put a link to that in the show notes that people can check out. Espen, I've had a lot of fun learning from you today, and it's also enjoyed watching you compete online and things like that. But do you have any final thoughts or advice for the audience?
I would just recommend everybody to believe in themselves. Don't put limitation. I know it's very easy when you see, for example, you're from a small academy. You see some of the big academies on social medias, and you believe you can. It's easy to rationalize if you don't have success that you need to be in that environment to become good. But if you do with the best of what you have, you can become really good. So you just have to believe and you have to try to innovate. Think out of the box. Don't put any restrictions on yourself.
Yeah, you are a great example of that. Where can we go to keep up with you? Is there somewhere online, social media, we could follow you?
You can find me on YouTube. I have some a highlight there. I have some studies. I've been doing some breaking down some fighters like Lander Lowe and Mayaos. And also you can find me on Instagram and Espen Mathiesen, and of course at Facebook.
All right, I'll find those and put links to them, and recommend following you in those locations because you could learn a lot. Espen,
perfect.
Thanks so much for hopping on with me. I had a great time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me here.
All right, thank you, Espen, for the interview. Really cool talking with him. It's really crazy that I always like it when people are training in like a smaller setting without a huge, 80 people, 80 black belts on the mat on my team, and I was able to place at this particular tournament or whatever. He's got a small gym, some really great people there, but they're training really smart. And that's how he's able to do it, because just a small gym, just doing, armbar drills for 3 hours straight would not have got him where he is today. He's doing specific drills. He's working on certain areas of his game he wants to develop. And, that's been the plan he's had really since blue belt, and it has worked for him great. So if you're in a situation where a lot of your jiu-jitsu development is really under your own control, maybe re-listen to this interview and see what he's doing as far as developing your game and where to take it. And it's just it's just neat to find somebody like him who's doing so well, but training not in one of the big teams. Not that his team isn't great; he's got a great team, but he doesn't have 30 black belts on the mat every night.
Yeah, definitely, he's got a great team, and I was reading his biography there under BJJ Heroes, and one thing that I thought was kind of cool is his team became affiliated with Jose Kimura under Nova Union Academy. I was like, how is that cool for a name, Jose Kimura, especially when you're a jiu-jitsu guy? What a name. Yeah,
I'm clicking on this, Gary, looking at BJJ Heroes. They also have a cool article we could use. BJJ Heroes has lots of good profiles of competitive grapplers and notable people. And now they also have cool articles as well. This article is called New Study Proves BJJ's Effectiveness Against Stress. And it's interesting. I think we have all kind of felt that jiu-jitsu does provide a stress relief. So they got 60 people, 30 of which compete or do jiu-jitsu, and 30 of which don't really do anything physical. And they kind of compared the results of the survey about stress and things like that. And jiu-jitsu people really did well as far as handling stress properly and not feeling as much stress in their daily life.
Even without a study, I could tell you, 100% just from my own life that jiu-jitsu has done wonders for my stress. I do have a job, and I'm kind of a stressful person. So where I say I have a stressful job, there's a lot of people who do my job that don't get stressed. I'm just that guy. I'm always trying to hit numbers. I'm always, everything's always so important when it shouldn't be that much. And, I do get stressed. And I tell you, the best thing I can do is, go train. Jiu-jitsu is my number one thing I like to do. And I tell you, the 3 hours I'm on the mat, Byron knows, since I can't train every day, that when I do train, I try to turn it into a 3 or 4 hour session. I want it to go as forever. But when I do train, man, I don't think about anything that happened during the day. My mind is just totally cleansed. I'm happy. I have to have my mind, when I'm on the mat, fully, no distractions, because, I have to make sure I don't get caught in an arm bar, make sure I don't get caught in the choke, get up off the bottom. I need my brain for that. I need my mind clear. I'm always smiling. And not only does it decrease my stress for the couple hours I'm on the mat, I can come home and have 4 hours before I go to bed. But my mind is clear for those 4 hours before I go to bed. I sleep well, which gets me, great for the next day. And, for me, jiu-jitsu has just done wonders for my, personal life, just lowering my stress level and making me a much more pleasant person for my wife and family to be around.
Yeah, this was and it's great. I feel the same way, and I think that most people have experienced a stress relief while hitting the mats, and then it does last for a certain amount of time afterwards. You don't leave with the same stresses and weight on your shoulders as you did when you walked in the door. And I don't know, it'd be kind of neat to see how long that lasts, or if if you can get the last couple of days, you're training again, and then you have overall a less stressful life. And this is one of the big health benefits of jiu-jitsu. Extra weight, not being in shape, lacking in muscle, those things hit you in the health category and as a big negative. So jiu-jitsu helps those. But stress, it gives you the higher blood pressure. It just messes with your entire system and causes you health problems. So just by reducing stress, a couple of notches down there on the scale has a great health benefit, even if jiu-jitsu wasn't exercise. It was just a stress relieving activity where you didn't even get sweaty. Could you believe it? If that could happen, although it doesn't, just by reducing that stress, you still get health benefits.
Yep. I like going through the questions.
Yeah.
And one question that really hit me is number 4. How often have you felt confident about your ability to handle your personal problems? And and they show the sedentary subjects at 1.53 stress level and the jiu-jitsu subjects at 0.7. And I can tell you the one thing that jiu-jitsu has really helped me with in my life since I started jiu-jitsu is, I the confidence that I get with it, and the confidence to handle anything that comes up to me in my personal life and my work life. It doesn't really matter. I'm more confident speaking in front of people, at work and conferences. I'm more confident, in my job. I'm more confident as a husband, as a father. And, I really attributed to jiu-jitsu that it really built, my confidence levels. And I look at every time I get on the mat with Byron, every time I get on the mat with my training partners, that, man, it's tougher than anything I'm going to do in, a given year, when I get on the mat. There's rarely anything that I'm going to find that's, going to be more taxing physically and mentally than what I'm doing on the mat. And just the times, the years I spent getting beat up, and it's not that I don't get beat up today because, I got hammered this morning rolling. It's a character builder. It teaches me so much about myself. I push myself to the limits and in ways that I couldn't have before. And it's really given me confidence to know that if I could do this and I stuck with it, and, especially like we always talk about that first year, it's a tough year. Your ego takes a bath and it takes a beating and your body's hurting and you thought you were going to be better than you were because you could do 20 push-ups and you just get out there and you just get mopped up but just to stick through all that and keep plugging away just does wonders for your confidence that if you can do that. I say if I can do this and kept going at it, there's not much I can't do in life.
Gary, I like the fact that you're getting confidence. You listed several areas. One of them was in your marriage. Although as you get older, you can't go as long. You're still increasing that confidence in jiu-jitsu. But that being said, Gary, I like to have a couple of comments about this as well. Let that go unchecked and unresponded to. So Gary's referring to a graph. He's not going to comment. That's nice. There's a graph on the website here on BJJ Heroes. It's really cool to kind of see the degree of separation between some of these questions. And there's one question that has the most. There's the biggest gap between a person who does jiu-jitsu and a person who has a lifestyle that they don't really do much activity at all. The biggest gap, the biggest difference is question number 3. How often have you felt nervous or stressed? That's it. I think, it's like getting the dial turned down a little bit on the nervous level. Get on the mat, working hard, really getting it out, trying some things, being a little bit nervous on the mat. When you're off the mat, you're a little less stressed, you're a little less nervous, just a little less nervous. You're definitely get that confidence Gary's talking about. I think that question right there, because it's the biggest. My eye was drawn to that very quickly because it is the largest separation, the biggest difference between all these questions. And I was like, oh, what is that? Which one question is that? And it's that one, and that's a big one. You feel less stressed and less nervous because you do jiu-jitsu.
I agree, Byron. Yeah. And there was a bonus question that is not on here.
Oh boy, here we go.
Question number 9. Ask the BJJ subjects and the sedentary subjects. If you rolled with Byron, how many times would you beat him out of 10 times? In a jiu-jitsu match, and both subjects said 10 out of 10. So,
true. What
that tells me is even the sedentary subjects have no respect for Byron.
Yeah.
They call Byron the Rodney Dangerfield of jiu-jitsu.
No respect. Yep, that's true, Gary. And it's, it's hard to find question number 9 on the thing, but if you poke around long enough on the website there, you'll stumble upon it like Gary did. And,
just hit every link possible and maybe it'll show up.
No, there is a cool link on there that takes you to the actual more information, a bigger breakdown of what the questions were and how people responded and how they relate to jiu-jitsu. I thought that was kind of neat that they gave more data. And, when you get these, there's always room for like, okay, what about this? What about that? Is 60 people really enough to judge this sort of thing? And those questions, and, that sort of questioning gets pretty complicated pretty quick. But you could take some assurance in knowing that this person got 100%. This was used for work at Halak University in Turkey, and the person scored 100% perfect score on this. So the instructor thought it was a great job on the research and development of the survey questions and the results. I would also think it would be interesting to find just people who have active lifestyles. So, jiu-jitsu compared to somebody who plays tennis or a professional ping pong or rides a bicycle a lot. Like, is jiu-jitsu helping with that, with stress and confidence more than those activities, or is just fitness and exercise helps? So that would be another, like a follow-up thing to do.
Yeah, that'd be neat to see. And I think fitness and exercise, and I think jiu-jitsu is part of fitness and exercise. I think anybody who's doing fitness and exercise will score, higher than the sedentary person. But I would be curious to see, like you said, like a weightlifter versus a jiu-jitsu guy, or a football player, or baseball player, softball player versus a jiu-jitsu guy, just to see what those numbers would bring.
Yeah, that would be that'd be cool. And maybe another thing you could check out on this would be, a competitor jiu-jitsu person versus a non-competitor. So somebody who's a hobbyist who's really going out there having fun.
I like that.
Not experiencing, maybe the competitor gets that, like a lot of confidence, a lot of things like that. Maybe they get a lot more stress because they are competing. They do want to win. They put that burden on themselves. So I don't know how it would go if they get more confidence or more stress or what for the competitor versus the casual martial artist. That would be a neat way to do the survey as well.
Yeah, good point, Byron. That is, you have a very analytical mind. You may not be very good at jiu-jitsu, but your mind works well. Well, I'm just saying that because of question number 9.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yep.
And I do appreciate you giving me the compliments like that. They really mean a lot.
I'm always got your back, Byron. Literally.
Well, Gary, with no mat tails, I have a special treat for you. And we have our friend.
You went to Dairy Queen and got me a Blizzard?
Sorry, Gary. I did go to Dairy Queen. I did get a Blizzard. It is gone. So
Byron, I thought we were buddies.
Yeah, we are buddies, but we're not at the Blizzard buddy level yet. I'm eating all of the Blizzard. So that's happening. I feel like a jerk now, Gary. Way to make me feel bad about this.
I'm going to start hanging out with Joe a lot more than you.
Well, wait till you get done with this, because Joe is going to feed you the audiobook that you're working on this week, because he's got a great title worked out for you, and I'm interested in see where you take this thing. Joe,
so now you guys are both teaming up on me.
Well, you wanted some food. This isn't a Blizzard, but it's served cold. Joe, what do you have for us this week for Gary's article? Or no, Gary's audiobook.
Well, I'm excited about this. Gary's working on a new audiobook. It's called Untitled Jiu-jitsu, Gary's Guide for Self-Defense in the Nursing Home. Gary, why don't you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write this book, other than the fact that you are closing in on that age?
Well, I really, this is actually a true story, to make me write this about Geritol Jiu-Jitsu. And because there's a lot of self-defense, not only with the staff, but with other people in the home that you would be in. But, Joe, you asked a very good question. What inspired me to write this? And, I'm getting up there in age, as Joe kindly pointed out, and as Byron always points out. And but I still try to get on the mat. But one thing that happens when you get a little bit older is you may have issues that require a catheter. Sometimes you may have to go to the hospital or a home or a doctor and get a catheter put in. And that's the first thing that happened to me. What made me think about this? Because I had a catheter put in, and as they were trying to pull it out, I was asleep when it was put in, but as they say it's coming out, I'm like, over my dead body. They tried to come in, a couple people, and pull that thing out, and I'm not having it. So it made me realize that I was helpless, and they just pulled that thing out, balloon and all. And so I figured I needed to write this book to protect other people so they're not in that same situation as myself.
Well, Gary, it's funny that you mentioned that particular scenario, because I'm interested in one of your chapters. It's called Techniques: the Walker Guard, the Cane Defense, and the Catheter Pull, and other techniques that are age appropriate.
Yeah, the catheter pull really can put some people out of commission. Ice packs don't work very well, for expansion. The catheter pull, we kind of went over that a little bit. But the Walker Guard, the Walker Guard can work really well, because what you've got is your nursing home is kind of like a jiu-jitsu classroom, a jiu-jitsu school. You have all sorts of people from brand new white belts to, Division I wrestlers to black belts to everybody in between, big and small. We have the same thing in the nursing home. We've got people that can still run. We've got people that need walkers. We've got people that need canes. I start off with a Walker Guard before I start going to, cane maneuvers. But, the Walker Guard, a lot of times I like to pull Walker Guard. I'll find somebody who can actually, still stand very well and run and walk very well. And, I just roll right up to them, the key word being roll. And then, I will pull guard, full or half. But the nice thing is, as you get older, a lot of times you lose, shoulder mobility due to rotator cuff injuries. So you can't really frame, but that's where the walker comes into. I can have a great frame with that walker. And, a lot of times with that tennis ball on the bottom of the walker where the wheels aren't, a lot of the guys will just use that kind of like a foam roller instead of a lacrosse ball. So a lot of times you do get a lot of pressure in it, but they're really just, getting rid of the knots in their muscles. So you can kill two birds with one stone. You're not going to pass my guard because I have a great frame, and the guy I'm going against is going to work out the knots in his muscles.
Joe, the interesting part about this whole Walker Guard, how he developed it, he spent years in the circus as a lion tamer, and he had that chair he could hold up and really defend against that lion that was trying to attack him. And just that chair between him and that lion worked out great. Now he's a little bit older, and now he's fighting wounded cougars, but the Walker Guard is very similar to that chair guard he played in the circus as a clown.
Yeah. What happened to me, why I had to leave the circus, I made a mistake one day. When you're in the circus...
I made a mistake with a bearded lady.
No, that was,
Not a mistake.
That's when I had my son, Byron. But, but no, back when I was a lion tamer with, the reason my body is so beat up now, like I was discussing with Joe before the show, and why I'm now in a nursing home and practice Geritol Jiu-Jitsu is, in the circus, you don't make a lot of money, and we don't hire a lot of people. So you do a lot of stuff from, putting up the rides to, slinging burgers and giving slices of pizza in the stands to doing your lion show. But I would also take care of the lions. I'd clean up the poop, and I would groom them, and I would feed them. My problem is I just got done feeding the lions, but I still had a steak in my back pocket. So I went out there, and I was supposed to have a docile lion, but he turned into a wounded cougar once he smelled that steak. And I got beat up pretty good, kind of like Super Dave Osborne is kind of what it was like. If you go back and watch any Super Dave episodes, that's kind of what I look like. And after that, I just went downhill. And so that's kind of what happened to me and why I'm where I'm at now.
A Super Dave Osborne reference. That tells you everything you need to know about Gary and his perception of the audience.
I'm glad somebody else knows who Super Dave is, because I know Byron right now is Googling it.
He would get he was a stunt guy. He had his own little show. It was comedy, and he would always just take horrible accidents. It was pretty silly.
Kind of like myself, lion taming. I really do think this is going to be a good seller. I mean, you think about the population in the United States and, those baby boomers. I mean, that's the number one, population-wise. And, we do have a lot of money. We do. So I do think this thing is going to sell. And, I'm trying to get it out, at the perfect time. It's going to come out right before Thanksgiving. So, I mean, it'll be ready for, Christmas gifts. So definitely make sure you put it on your Christmas list, because I think a lot of people will enjoy this audiobook.
Well, what kind of threats are you expecting in the nursing home, Gary, that you've got to come up with your own self-defense program?
I'm telling you, you would not believe the threats you can go in there. I mean, I know the nursing home I went to, we got rid of regular steak knives, and we have butter knives. But a lot of these people, I mean, I'm from the mean streets of Wichita, Kansas. It's probably a little more, ghetto than the mean streets of West Lynn, Oregon, where Chael Sonnen's from. So we have a good proportion of, the residents in my home have all done time. I've got, everybody from murderers to, white collar crimes. And so these butter knives, these guys are great at turning into shanks. And I know we've talked about this before on the show, Byron, but we learn stuff. Basically when you go in, you have to you need to know the code and what you need to do. But if you need to take somebody out, what they do is they take that butter knife, they get you in the shower, they take that butter knife that has turned into a shank, they're gonna basically stab you in the liver. They're going to break it off in you so you can't pull it out. And then you throw it down the drain. And that way, the guards can't find you. But, with the population that we have of, ex-criminals in the mean streets here of Wichita, Kansas, you definitely need to, be well-versed in, geriatric threats.
That escalated quickly.
Yes, it did. Gary's always quick to share his stories about him getting stabbed in the shower at the jail.
And we're talking about stabbed with a knife, guys.
Whatever, Gary. You're still alive, man.
Yeah, but I'm also going to have an article or basically a prologue to this book about how to use a dinner roll and butter as a way to take somebody out. I'm not going to tell you that on air because I really want everybody to buy the book to learn what they can do with a dinner roll and how to subdue people.
I'm gonna ruin it. I'm gonna tell everybody. Sorry, man. I'm doing it. Cardiovascular disease.
No, it's not that, Byron. It is not that. I mean, when we're at that point, we all have cardiovascular disease, Byron. So that has nothing to do with that.
Okay, I thought I knew it.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Joe.
Byron, that's a long-term plan.
Yeah. I've been bringing cookies for Gary for years at training, and it's I'm probably a bit of ways away, but in 40 years or so, it's gonna pay off.
Yeah, but by the time you get into this home that I'm at, I'm already sitting at the top of the steps.
Dang it!
You are going to be in trouble,
man. I'll be holding your pocket, inside out pocket.
Well, you do already.
man. Oh, this has been fun. So we ask if any of the audience members have a audiobook for Gary. Send that in at bjjbrick@gmail.com. Sorry, Joe has special privileges because he's the third member of the team. So we might have him back to do this again sometime. This has been a lot of fun, Joe.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Joe.
Anytime, Gary, anytime. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Joe.
You bet. Bye.
On social media, we've got Joe is helping us out big time with our Facebook page. We're on there a lot too. Joe will post. A lot of times he writes. He'll put his name after his post. You can tell it's by him. We should do that with us too, but we don't post as much. And Joe's just real creative with some of his questions and ideas, and great conversations going on our Facebook page. Check out the YouTube channel, putting up lots of BJJ Brick Q&As where you send in your questions and I answer them the best I can. Really trying to help you guys out. And one new thing, Gary, some big news coming up.
Uh-oh. What's the big news?
Big news is we now have an app. And as the time of this recording, it's on iTunes. And it should be out in the Google Play Store by the time this comes out. So search for BJJ Brick in the App Store. You can find our app. It's going to be an easy way to kind of get the podcast, keep up with things. And I do plan on putting some exclusive app material up there to where, you know, if you have the app, you get maybe a notification. I really don't know how it works. I'm in the white belt, no stripes. Don't even own a gi yet phase when it comes to app, and working the app. But you could definitely join in and learn with me as far as I try to expand this to our own app, Gary. That's pretty exciting.
Yep. You know, like Byron says, you know, it's BJJ Brick, the podcast, Snap, Tap, or app. So we now have the app.
We now have the app. And Gary, the app would not have been possible without our friends from
Patreon. We have a link to Patreon on the show notes. Patreon is a website for content producers like ourselves. And this show is free to listen to, but it's not free to put on. It does cost us a little bit of money to host this show. We have been taken over once by hackers who, put up some crazy pictures.
That's true.
I think a lot of people enjoyed, which costs money. So our Patreon supporters, a lot of times they'll donate, money per show, per month. And, that really helps us out, keeps us going. And if you become a Patreon supporter, we do send you a gi patch. We send you a BJJ Brick sticker. And you get to be put in the private Facebook group, which a lot of times Byron, before getting ready for an interview, will tell you who's going to be in the interview. Do you have any questions for him? And we try to include that in there too. Yeah,
that's real cool. Gary, as you're talking about the time that Patreon supporters literally save the podcast, we did get hacked. And I wish I knew when it was, because it's probably been more than a year. We got hacked, and basically it took money to fix the problem on the website. And it was pretty discouraging, but the people on Patreon really saved the day on that one, because I don't know if I would have been up for the battle to clean that thing up without the funds. But I would like to go. I don't know what episode it was when we actually made like a little bit of an apology. We said, "Hey, here's what happened. Sorry if you went to this website and you saw these things." I like to go back and find what episode that was, because that would be kind of funny to listen to how we handled the hacking by such a not BJJ Brick like website.
I mean, we have the BJJ Brick website, but I think somebody turned it into the BJ Brick website.
There you go, Gary. You're always taking it one step over to the side there, if not a couple of steps.
And backwards. I'm moonwalking my way across the stage, Byron. Definitely, if you happen to come through Wichita, Kansas, let us know. Send us email, bjjbrick@gmail.com. Send us a message on our Facebook page. We'd love to get on the mat and roll with you. And as always, let all your friends know about this podcast. We appreciate you, getting our name out there and showing us support. So thank you.
Check us out next week. We have Silver Fox. We have Carl Pravik on the BJJ Brick podcast. He is a black belt under Renzo Gracie. Been training forever. A lot of cool stuff. Gary, you excited about this one?
Man, I tell you, I've looked up to this guy for a long time. He's just, kind of an idol of mine. And, I've, watched him compete. I've watched all his videos, and I've always really liked watching his stuff about, swimming and how he does a lot of that and works his moves underwater and stuff like that. So has really helped my game out.
Yeah, and he has some stuff that is helping the older, lighter weight. I think he's a scrawny grappler. Do good on the mat against the bigger, younger people. And a lot of that is just being clever, outsmarting them, and outworking them sometimes in some areas. And a lot of cool discussion on this one.
Yeah, so definitely that's going to be an awesome episode. Do not miss it. And like I said before, tell your friends, because your friends won't want to miss this episode either.
Get together with your friends and stay sweaty.
And don't forget to lower your stress.
By doing jiu-jitsu.
And eating popcorn.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.